sa alas 10. And it's time for the Top of the Morning News Bites Local Edition. Maing bungkag ni mo diya, Justin.
Hi, Jiggy. Top of the morning. Hi, everyone.
14 minutos nang milabay sa alas 10. It's so funny.
14.
I repeated that because you know what 14 means, no?
14.
14, good. It's so funny because
Yeah.
nag-host man ko gahapon good og kaning the Sante Barley trilogy Run Asia ba?
Yeah.
Niya paghuman ingon
Why do you say host?
Nag-host ko ba?
Anong kaduhaman?
Dili man ako. Lingaw-lingaw ra man ato ba?
Okay.
Para nag-DJ ko, para karon nag-DJ.
DJ. I like that, like
30 na katuig ko nag-DJ ko. Sobra na 30 katuig. DJ lang yapon. Duwa lang yapon. Anyway, my point is nga, nag-host ko ba dito niya. Bagayin ko, ingon ko nga, I said something like, 16 minutos nang milabay sa alas 8. There was this girl who said, unsa man ang 16?
Okay, what is that?
What? Like, it's just funny. And that actually also...
I feel you, girl.
Sometimes Summer also asked that, unsa man ang alas 7? Nabuang naman na sila eh. Kani nga gabi hagid sa di ta kasabot even mismo kanang numero lang ba?
Yeah, I mean, not unless it was
hilarious.
taught to you good, I think. Or if you actually like learn it, you know,
yeah.
then you'll know.
Ikaw, yun sa man yung pagkahibaw nga kanang
14 is 14?
17 kanang unsa man, like, did you learn that in school?
No.
Did your parents teach you a little bit of Binisaya? Unsa man?
No, I'm still bad at that. Like until now, I'll still
But how did you
ask-
learn 17 and 16?
I don't actually know what this is yet and this is. I just know what 14 is. You know why?
Why?
There was this show before in ABS-CBN called 14, starring Erich Gonzalez and Chongdi,
So wala ka kay
which I loved so much.
Wala ka kay mag 17 o 16? Tarong di
This is size. The size is 6.
Oh,
so
exactly.
What is this size?
Huh?
I think it's. Yeah, I don't know.
It's 16.
Really?
Oh, this is size.
Then 7.
17 is 17.
Oh.
18 is 18.
What's 15?
15.
Okay, see, they're two different.
I know,
14
right?
kids, then it becomes a very long word. This is
language is so complex, man.
Super.
Anyway, before I
Then maglahi pag sa Tagalog na all the
Oh,
more.
para kang palaka.
Palaka kapala.
Baka pakala.
Palaka kapala.
Aligri kay sanan kay si friend Bata Reyes ug si kaning Django Bustamante.
Yeah, how was
ba?
it? How was it?
Kaning mga kuan kay sila mga laom kay sila managalog ba. So ako sa
So Tagalog ka rin din?
nagtagalog ko para ako nga palaka dili man na sa ganahan pud nga mag English ko ba kay kaning murag di sila murag magkuan ko na sila mag nosebleed ko na sila.
Oh, so paano yan? Nagtagalog ka?
Mo lagi so gakuan ko
Tagalog ka?
tinagawag ko. Okay raman nakayaram siguro nakaibot nakasabot raman siguro siya sa akong ipaibot. So
Yeah, that must have been difficult.
yeah. Anyway, let's have the local edition of our Top of the Morning News Bites, okay? Karong adlaw Marso 31. Iba ko sa 31.
Kana, that makes sense. Times that 30 then.
Okay, the
Uno.
Office of the Ombudsman has filed a criminal case before the Sandigan Bayan against former Cebu City Mayor Michael Rama for awarding 3 purchase orders for garbage collection without conducting competitive public bidding. Mo kanang headlines sa Sunstar Cebu. Sa Muslim communities in Cebu City gathered at the Plaza Independencia last March 31 to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of Ramadan, a month of fasting and spiritual reflection observed by Muslims nationwide. Eid al-Fitr, which translates to the festival of breaking the fast. Breaking the fast is one of the most important Islamic holidays, celebrated with prayers, feasts, and acts of charity. In Cebu City, the event brought together Muslims from various parts of the region to partake in communal prayers, which are typically held early in the morning, followed by festivities that include sharing of food, visiting relatives, and donating to the less fortunate. The gathering at the Plaza Independencia highlighted the importance of unity, peace, and gratitude, which are central themes of Eid al-Fitr. The celebration also reflected Cebu's growing Muslim population and the city's diverse cultural landscape. Mo kanang headlines sa Sunstar Cebu karong adlaw March 31, 2025. So that is or are the news headlines sa tuwang mga local newspapers, in particular Sunstar. Ikaw, Justin, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good.
Did you celebrate Eid al-Fitr? Did you I don't know. What did you do, man?
Pretty much just rested. I walked around
You walked around.
Il Corso in
Il Corso.
Yeah, in the south pag
Wow.
Saturday. It was nice.
Did you? Apa mo siya na human? Saan ni siya? Lagi-lagi pero. Okay, so siya na human. Sige, tell me about your walk. Go ahead.
Yeah, just pretty much walked around Il Corso, had
Okay,
some coffee.
What are your thoughts while you were walking?
It smells like fish.
Really?
Kaya di ba it's ano man siya, by the sea. So it has a really fishy smell.
Really?
Yeah, which I like also kay
Wait a minute. Sa,
quote-unquote fresh air.
Naglakaw-laka ka sa may El Corso.
Yeah, di ba there's like a part there nga murag na ay it's like by the sea gyud.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was kind of walking around there and
so
then
sigurado kang imuhang gisimhot ka ng isda?
I think so. I hope so.
Ha?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Nga, manimahaw din ang isda kung buhi di ay.
Ambot ko unsa na siya. Salty air scent.
Really? Kaya
Yeah.
ang akong nadunggan na is that's really from the trash of all of the
Yeah, actually, sadly,
mga factories,
yeah,
mga,
maybe.
mga hugaw sa mga squatters area. Unsa termino nga sakto nga
Garbage.
dili na politically correct way of saying
Like informal settlers.
informal settlers, pardon me, okay?
Yeah.
Onya kanang mga
A lot of waste.
waste sa mga restaurant kanang mo ko
Yeah, actually, I think that's what's thinking of
ko na baho diha
sadly.
ko no unya kanang lubog man kay na diha ang kuan ang kaning ang
It's like
dagat diha.
Yeah. And then there's also on the side nearest to the road game park na dako kay nga kanal. So I think that's also what contributes to the smell. But to my surprise, yeah, there was a lot of garbage. No wonder ka ng mga cleanup drives. They usually have it there sa El Corso, no?
So, but it's nice to think
Maybe
about,
if I had like stuff,
Yeah,
the
it's-
gear, I would probably out of boredom, I'll just punit-punit na
but
mga basura.
But what I'm saying is it's nice to think that it's fish. I think you can
Yeah,
you can,
I'll just tell myself it's the fresh air, fresh good.
you can continue with that mindset, right?
I'll just think it's fresh air
Yeah.
and all of that.
Because it's all about mindsetting, di ba? Di ba? Kaning kung imong gisimhot imong pagtuo kay mga isda then nindot kay nga feeling ang mong kahumot ano, di ba?
I think that's what happened, Gijigi. Walking around, I'm thinking, wow, fresh air, but we all know it's kind of polluted air.
Parihar gud ang atong gisgutan
Ay,
niya
nako.
itong una, Justin, nga ang pagkaon mas lami gyud kung dili ka stressed mo na kung ang mga tao mamakasyon maato kag laing lugar
Yeah.
murag tagsa na kayo ka makaingon nga way lami diri oy, di ba?
Yeah.
Kadaghanan ko
So
mamakasyon.
imong mood will affect the
Oh,
taste of the food. Bali.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes
Hey,
sense.
there's actually I read some literature about it. I can't remember from whom, but naigihisgot nga kung ma-stress kuno ka imong baba kuno mo secrete kuno og some kind of fluid nga makes maybe like a stress fluid, whatever, that makes the food taste less good. It ruins kind of
I didn't know that.
your palate ba. So yeah, plus of course gisapot ug kagod you're not in a good place, di ba? So ang pagkaon mo dili kay ka maka-savor sa, di ba?
I have a question for you, Jiggy.
Go ahead.
I notice it varies from person to person. Like when you're stressed or when you're anxious about something, do you feel hungry or mawad-an ka gana? Like kung naay, for example, like in school, when you have a big test coming up or when you have a gig, for example, and then you're about to host something or like you're awaiting an event ba that's really important. Do you feel hungry sa kulba or do you feel like mawad-an ka gana?
Do I feel hungry sa kulba?
Yeah, kay for example, like my mom, I notice if naay something important, like if we're doing an event or we have guests coming over, like we have to prepare for something, kay or like it's a really busy day, we have a very packed schedule, kay murag mawa yang gana. She forgets to eat. Like she doesn't feel hungry throughout the day, kay murag mabusy siya ba. Ako bali, if I have something important like a test or like if I have a full schedule ahead of the day, kay I feel hungry. Like the more nga busy ko or the more nga naay buhatonon, kay murag nakoy gana to eat. Balik ko.
So the busier you are, the hungrier you become.
Yeah, but for my mom, bali siya.
But
mawad siya gana.
Let me take let's break down what you just said. So the busier you are, the hungrier you become.
Yeah.
Do you become hungry before you are doing the thing that you're doing. So that is probably psychological. But
Yeah,
if you're
for sure.
but if you're hungry after your busyness, then maybe you're
Yeah, because you exerted energy.
you really are hungry. So when does the hunger set in?
Before, I'm
If-
talking about, so in both instances, I'm comparing me and my mom. It's always before. So if there's something really busy, siya kay mawadan siya gana. It could be, I really think it's greatly psychological. Kay kanang appetite, it's like 80% psychological also. So, for her, if naay buhaton ng important kay, she doesn't want to eat. Pero kung ako, gutmon man ko, ikaw, are you like that? Like when you have an event, for example, do you like feel hungry or do you feel like you don't really want to eat?
Well, first of all, if the event involves kanang makitaan ka og tao, meaning to say natay
Makitan kag tao. I
no,
love
no,
that.
what I mean by is like if it's a public event, for example,
Busy kayo.
if you're in a meeting, right? For example, I'm hosting something, right? Or I'm doing
Like in the past days, busy kayo ka.
so I'm always in front of people, right? So ang problema na ko anang kaon manggod is number one, after mo kaon kinahanglan ka manut brush, di ba?
Okay.
Unless of course si Kuan ka si Ron ka di manut brush si Ron.
Wala.
I'm just
Ron's gonna turn off this live, yun. Ano sir, ana day na ha?
I'm
Pango na ako ang live, Ron.
I'm just kidding, Ron. Bad brita to.
That's us. Kita day na.
So sa tawag ni so kung na ako'y event nga makikimamat ko og tao, dili ko ganahan kayo mukaon kay number one kaning hugo imong ipon.
Okay.
Number two, manut
That's a good-
sa saga.
Okay.
Number three, kung dili ko makadaog mouthwash, di ko makadaog kaning mints, then bad breath ka, di ba?
Okay.
And all of that stuff. So kung mahimo lang gyud kaning di jud ko mukaon kung naay ko or mukaon.
You have something important coming up.
Mukaon ko daan prior to that, right? And of course, kung mukaon ka, mudako man imuhang waistline, di ba? Kay buspon og pagkaon. So kung naka sa tubangan sa let's just say if I'm hosting, then mudako imong tiyan tanawon, akong tiyan tanawon. So kung mahimo gali mag
But what about in terms of like appetite?
Mag fasting kuno ko. Oh.
What about in terms of appetite? Like, do you feel like you're like wala kay gana because you're so busy? Have you ever experienced that? Sa imong ka-busy, nalimtan nimo og you forget to eat because sa imong sa mawadan ka gana to eat?
Na dili man kay na wad-an ka og gana, wala lang ka nakaon na huna sa imong kagutom siguro because busy kay kastanan.
Okay.
Onya, maybe sad wala say opportunidad nga naay pagkaon sa tubangan nimo kay murag inaccessible kay yung pagkaon, for
Yeah,
example.
could be that too.
Kanang for example naka sa stage, for example, onya wala gyud
Yeah, there's nothing for you to eat.
Wala gyud makaon sa tubangan nimo, so gutomon ka na pero dili lang ka magunahuna kay so
Because you're busy.
Mainom na lang ka og tubig unya. Kita kuan beta hilig beta og kaning puasa, di ba? Kay daghan makita mga sala, di ba? So nagpuasa man jud ko pirmi o kaning intermittent fasting sad ba?
Oh yeah.
So kanang dugay ko makakaon dili man kay na maka hangry na ako, dili man kay na
Hangry.
kanang
Hungry and angry.
o dili man kayo ko maepektuhan na ng kuwang og kaon. In fact, I feel good nga naka-fasting ko because there's some science behind it nga kinahanglan gyud nga kaning
Yeah, what are the benefits of like intermittent fasting?
Moagi gyud ka og kaning kagutom ba. Mo na gitawag og voluntary hunger. Namo to statistics gipakita sa DSWD kaganiha ba nga 27% kuno of Filipinos are hunger, but akong gihisgot sa gi-qualify nga this is involuntary hunger. So, mo na sila
Okay.
kanang mga way kao wala ikapalit og pagkaon pero ginaswertian man ta nga kita ang atong pagagutom kay usually voluntary hunger, mag intermittent fasting, di ba?
Yeah. So do you think that people should do that? Like, I tried intermittent fasting man for a while. There was a time nga I did that, pero and makaya naman, I think, but I cheat because I drink water, diba? Supposedly, di man ka mo inom og water.
Yeah.
I drink water, kay feel na ko malipong gid ko.
Okay ram siguro ng tubig. I think okay ra gyud ang tubig sa
Yeah?
intermittent fasting. Speaking of kaning fasting ba, kanang for example, you're about to do something that requires good thinking, clear thinking,
Okay.
even hosting. Maayo kuno nga naa kay kaning a little bit of slight hunger kay ang imuha manggong kunong utok kung busog ka, kung naisud imong tiyan,
Yeah.
murag ma-distract ba? Because it's
Like brain fog.
it's also processing other activities, right? Your brain is like the head control of
So it's
everything, right?
subconsciously looking over, like
So dili kay siya
managing your digestion, all that.
and
Okay.
managing that. So dili kay ka maka-concentrate. So mas
Oh, I
maayo
didn't
ko
think
nung
of that.
a little bit of hunger yun.
But what if your mind is also like your brain is subconsciously being distracted by the hunger? Kay gutom man.
Ang kanang inana nga dapita usually makaon ko candy sa pero kung if I know nga magdugay ko sa ako ang trabaho, akong buhatonon, mukaon gyud ko daan. I try to eat ahead kay pwede raman good nga clear thinking kay kustanan for the first hour, di ba? Yung igutom na jud kay kanang famished na gyud ba?
Yeah, I think I know.
The dili
Famished. I love that. I'm
dili
gonna start using that.
dili na gyud ka makahunahon nagtarong kay
Yeah.
ay kanon ka
So there's like a threshold there. There's like a, if it's a spectrum, there's a good amount of voluntary hunger,
Yeah.
and the good amount of like just enough to make you think,
Yeah.
but not so that you'd be too distracted.
too
no?
distracted.
Yeah, I remember I had a co-teacher before who mentioned nga he was really happy nga iyang class was placed at 11 to 12 before lunchtime. Kaingon siya, nakabantay siya nga mas participative ang students and mas makakama po ideas when they're like hungry. Kaysa for those who have classes within the unholy hour, like 1 to 2, I noticed they're a bit, I feel like most people are a little bit more relaxed and siguro dili kaayo mo churn out ang ideas kay busog man. Kana bitong giingon nila nga kana katulgon ka ba after
Sakit sa baboy, di ba?
yeah, or isn't it called sakit sa sawa, like sa snake also?
I don't know.
Yeah, baboy or sa snake.
I'm not familiar.
Both animals get sleepy after they
Really?
Busog.
Including animals called Homo sapiens, di ba?
Kana the most dangerous animal. Yeah.
The most dangerous animal of all.
Scariest animal.
Destroying the planet like
Kana.
no other animal.
Yeah. That reminds me of the interview ni Ryan Gosling.
Mga animal yun yung mga Homo sapiens, ha?
Yeah, we are. He was asked, what is the scariest animal? Niya siya, man. Which is true. We are the scariest animals. Yeah, but I was asking you about intermittent fasting. Kay today is the Eid al-Fitr, right? It marks the end of fasting for our Muslim brothers and sisters, for those who celebrate Islam religion. That really interests me, Jiggy. Kay when they say fasting, apparently, I've asked a Muslim friend, it doesn't only mean like what you consume in terms of food and drinks. It's everything from even smelling perfume daw. That's, I think it's called haram, diba? Haram means like something that correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Something that gives you pleasure, I think. So anything from, bawal, they try to deprive themselves of that for a specific period of time. So they don't allow themselves to sniff perfume, to wear perfume, kanang humot, or maminaw og music, or even to to be on social media, to anything that entertains you, I feel like, or gives you a sort of sense of pleasure. Kaya they try to abstain from that.
Haram is an Arabic term meaning forbidden or unlawful.
Okay. Kay music daw is haram when fasting. That's what I read somewhere.
So dili ka mo engage in anything worldly.
I think anything that gives you pleasure. So food, water, of course, kay masustain ka.
So for example, kaning conscious ka sa imong weight, unya mag-fasting gives you pleasure because you know nga you're going to be thin. Because you're going to be thin, di ba? Because you know that you're gonna finally fit in those pair of pants.
Jeans nga you've been.
Di ka masod. So saan man nabi? Pakanon jud ka.
So mukaon na lang ka.
Mukaon ka pa.
Bali noon.
Yeah, because like I remember that.
That's a good question.
Talking about this with my
I want to ask that
with my brothers a long time ago. Ba, you should find pleasure in being able to buy clothes that you like to wear.
Okay.
And fitting in on pants that you like to wear, right?
Okay.
And you have to think about that when you eat, right? Because the pleasure of kanang mukaon ka lami imong kaon because I mean, like, it is good. Like, I just had great lunch sa Ipari steak.
Yapari steak?
Yapari steak.
Oh, super good. What did you get?
Na sila kaning branch sa IT Park. Kanang tapad sa Shallow ba na? Shallow Cafe?
Sparrow.
Shallow. Ako Shallow, sorry. Sparrow.
How was it? What did you get?
It was really good. I I tried a little bit of everything, but akong paborito ka na gid ilahang steak nga mura ba tog puwa sa tunga-tunga.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called too. I like that too. And then lahi-lahi pigit mga sauces. They give you like 3 sauces, diba?
Lami kayo.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to check out Yapari Steak, you can come over here sa Tops. No, that's the original branch, I believe.
Yeah.
Inapod dito sa IT Park.
Ngaon sad mi ni nila ni Django Bustamante, nila ni Efren Bata Reyes, ni Anthony Sungkay. Kani si Anthony Sungkay. Mo ni siya ang mura og veteran sports commentator bitaw.
Woo!
Familiar ka ng mga commentator sa PBA, ano bitaw? Si Anthony Suntay usa ni sa mga sikat nga mga
commentators,
sportscasters sa PBA o sa billiards. Unya dito po silang Robilin Amit, sila ni Cheska Centeno, kani mga babae nga world champions.
Yeah, grabe.
So dito sa tawag ni sa
here's at the circle at Tops.
Ipari Steak dito sa IT Park. Dito
okay.
Nga abot man tawag steak atong istorya. Unsa man ni?
We were talking about fasting. Right, sorry.
Okay.
Distract ko.
Okay.
You mentioned something about fasting. Sorry, kindly continue your story.
And then what about?
You were telling me a story about ni kaon daw kag steak.
No. Naghisgot ng tagod nga kung gutumon ka this conversation that I had with my brothers nga, you should find pleasure also in looking good in clothes, right? Diba?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I look good in clothes. I'm just saying you should find, I'm just saying you should find pleasure in that. And how do you call this? Kanang pleasure of eating para nako mas mubo raman na siya nga kalipay nimo. Murag siguro in the time that you're eating, right? Lamian ni bay oy, pero ikaw man ni ana like ato din kaguan di kumasod sa ako ang karsones oy. Laina na ko tanan dako ikaw tiyan.
Very temporary fulfillment for a while. Okay, I get it.
Hunaon sa nimo kung mukaon ka, di ba? So ang pleasure sa pagkaon, is it worth it? You know what I mean? So like for example, gahapon lami kay atong pagkaon, nangaon tag lechon, steak, ang unsa na lang diya. So ganoon na ko nga lami gyud kini tanan niya. I'm gonna try to indulge, right? Because after a very busy weekend, di ba?
Why not coconut?
Kaon tag lami. But
kung panagsaram sad.
Saon man nako sad maglagot sa go ikaw man. Kay I really actually I get a little pissed off if I'm over full because it's just my brain like frigging like telling me
you ate too much.
Things that I should not do because the brain lagi is a monarch, is a dictator, is a what's na tawag na
the ruler of all.
A ruler nga iyahag yung ganahan kadaghanan matuman, di ba? Maglagot ko there's a little bit of subuangal. In fact, maglagot ko in fact this is a funny statement that I always say, especially my kids find it hilarious. Astang lami.
And it actually pisses you off.
Makalagot. Like kalabi ng ice cream ng lami kay mas mayan nang way lami kay ay salamat way lami. I'm not gonna eat a lot of this, you know what I mean?
I don't think I've gotten to that point pa ever of actually being frustrated sa kalami, but I think I know what you mean, especially if you're working towards a goal. I have friends who they go to the gym and they feel bad if mo overindulge sila kay you have to pay it off man. Like they have a certain goal and eating a lot doesn't align with that goal man. So if they want to achieve like this certain health goal, syempre they have to cut down on what they eat. So it's like a trade-off ba. So syempre mukha kang daghan, then you already know like the consequences. So I think maybe that's where your frustration comes from. You know the consequences, man good.
Well, I was telling them nganong nasuko mo kadad. I'm trying to have that kind of relationship with food. I don't want my relationship with food
it makes you happy?
It makes me happy all the
Oh
time.
no, that's me ba ya?
I don't want to
like comfort food.
I don't want to
Oh my goodness.
You see that it's bad, right? So you try to figure out a way to cheat on that.
So your brain
tendency to love food. I love food like sugar, for example. I talked about that, right? I have coffee. I have black coffee. You know, I hate sugar is the enemy, right? But the truth is, I love sugar. I'm a sugar addict.
It's just that you kind of wire your brain in such a way that, or you like convince yourself
Yeah,
to have
exactly.
that kind of relationship
with
food.
sugar, especially with
So I
sugar.
think the concept of comfort food, it doesn't appeal to you. No, you don't. You try not to find food comforting. You don't
I
know.
don't like to like food because I.
I don't like to like food.
Here's
Nice lagi na.
because here's the thing. Just like the laws that we talked about, katong music law, whatever. Kana manggong the body, the brain always wins, diba? Kibaw jud ka nga, ganahan jud kag pagkaon.
What the brain wants, the brain gets.
Kinanglan
Okay.
jud ka, ganahan jud kag asukar, right? Pero you try to have more a kind of mechanism in your head nga ang resulta na at least it's a kind of a radical thought in your head, parang resulta na somewhere in the middle.
Okay,
for
okay,
example,
okay.
kanang sugar, di ba? Di mo ko ganaga.
So you have to go to the extremes.
Para
Para napay leeway for you to like.
give way to what your brain, what the
Para hindi kay far off.
this is an admission that you have no control over your thoughts.
Kind of like
So,
shooting for the moon.
shooting for the stars.
Oh, so that you land
The
on.
moon, in the moon.
Or is it the other way around? I'm not sure. Basta.
Shooting for the stars, nga kung di ka makaigo sa stars, at least naabot ka sa moon, di ba?
Oo,
Whatever.
something
So
like
anyway, for example, kanang my love for sugar, right? So I always have everything black, right? So but
As plain as it can get.
as bitter as I can get, because
goodness.
just like my life, my coffee is bitter.
Bitter.
Okay, so but every now and then, mapalit ko kaning cookies, oy. Mapalit ko brownies, oy.
Cookies.
Ano ba daw?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So ina na ba? So because tagahan ginim mo allowance, because your brain is usually your brain usually wins. Your brain usually wins. Come on, admit it,
Yeah,
Jackson,
yeah.
right? You cannot override your human tendencies, right? Lisod gyud kay nastanan. So imo nang tagaan og amura og murag monkey wrench ba?
Yeah,
Imong
yeah.
utok ba para
Imo stop ba?
oh.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, but I myself, I find comfort in food when I'm stressed. Kanang I do like, I feel like it's a reward also after a very stressful day. Makakaon ko, balik ko. But there are some times when I feel like gluttony is being hyper. Unsa tawag ana kanang murag gi praise ra kaayo ang gluttony culture on social media. Have you noticed
Kanang
that?
mukbang and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, which makes me sad because I do love watching mukbangs. Like, I remember before when I was in high school, I listened to mukbangs on the way home
Okay.
para gutmon ko for dinner. Like after school, no.
So that's how you work up an appetite.
Yes, so really,
mukbang.
yeah. And then there were certain mukbangs that I'd like to watch. You know which ones I'd watch? Filipino food mukbang. Mukha siya mga pansit, mga chicharon, mga adobo.
Okay.
Pero nowadays, there are some content creators that it actually pisses me off now to watch how they eat. So wasteful. Like, you know that Dubai chocolate nga trend, Jiggy? Have you seen that? The one that has like kinafe inside, like a pistachio something.
Oh,
you know that trend?
My kids love that.
You tried it, na? Is it
it's-
good?
I think Lorraine gave us some. Lami. Pero
Lami siya?
I like the texture, murag crunchy, right?
Also, man, like coconut? Is it like
Yeah,
that?
something like that. Like
Oh,
like,
diba? You
yeah.
break it in half and then you can see like
Lami
the...
Lami kayo, maglagot lagi.
So one of the food that actually piss you off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw a content creator nga na siya nga na pero it's as big as his face. Like a big bar of kinafe. Then, you know...
Unsa man na siya? Is it like homemade thing or is it?
No, it was just like, I don't know if it's sponsored or what, but he was like trying blah blah blah.
it's like a product.
Yeah, it was a product na yung try. He tried
Okay.
5 different ones, and it
Okay.
just like, I know he's not gonna finish it. Yeah, I like, maybe personally the way I would do it is I would actually show me cutting it in half, and like I would keep the rest and just only eat a portion. Like, why do they have to eat the whole thing? Like, why do they have to bite the whole thing? You know, I feel like they're just making a mess and wasting it. So those kind of content creators, like, I feel like they piss me off, and I feel like gluttony is being overhyped on social
Okay,
media.
if you want to join us in our conversation about fasting,
Yeah.
about gluttony, about mukbang, join us at Tops Media Center. Narami diri hisgot me kung ganahan
Yeah.
mo text. Natay text number na nabayran na nato ato. Ang atong cellphone 0999-887-6070. Text lang me kung namoy mga inputs sa atong gipanghisgutan, and if you want to talk about anything in particular, just let us know. Ganahan
Yeah.
may baw unsang ang inyong gipang hisgutan diha sa inyong mga barangay, sa inyong mga munisipyo, sa inyong mga lugar, sa inyong mga syudad. Paibaw ami kibaw ka ang ipanghisgutan sa mga tao karong mga panahon na Justin is kanang eleksyon man gyud kay
Yeah.
duol na yung eleksyon, di ba?
Mm.
Daga na kayong mga nangampanya, di ba? Mga lain lang nga
Yep,
mga
the songs are out.
mga jingle, di ba? Unya mga kandidato kanang magbisita sa mga tagsa-tagsa ka mga panimalay nila sa mga barangay and all of that stuff. So I'm sure that's in the awareness of most of our
Oh yeah, for sure.
brothers and sisters out there, di ba?
I'm gonna wait for the time that Jiggy Juice becomes mayor.
Lisod kayo na,
Run
lisod-
for mayor
lisod
or
kayo
run
na.
for office. Any public office.
Kaya makibaw ko.
Diha na gid ko mga panya ug mayo Jiggy.
Makibaw ko nga pwerte gyud ang lisurang trabaho murag
Oh yeah.
it's almost like an impossible task bitaw.
And you're very much exposed to that. But you've never considered that, Jiggy. Like you never thought about it. Like,
Well,
hey, what if
Of course, I thought about that. Because I come from a kind of a political family. When I was a kid, I was involved in campaigning and all that stuff. Pero wala gyud kaning I feel like it's an impossible task.
is it?
Murag siyang imposible jud kay sanan because you have to
You're
please.
stretched too thinly.
Yeah, murag mo na nga I theorize nga if you run for higher office, let's just say if you run for president or mayor or senator, na jud kay
Just grabe ka taxing.
a little bit of delusion good. You have to be a little bit delusional to think na you can do
Like
better.
delusional in what way?
In the
Like
sense nga you think
can stretch that makaya nimo.
Kaya nimong imong mabuhat.
Physically or
physically and mentally. Physically and mentally because the truth is in your head siguro makayong kabuhaton ko na. But when reality sets in man good, lahi man good ang realidad good, lahi na imo mga pangandoy.
It's like a big slap on your face.
Lahi.
Yeah.
More you'll be stopped on your tracks here
so
and
many
there,
times.
and you have to please a lot of people and the problem usahay is kadaghanan sa mga kausaban ng mga hitabo sa kalibutan hinay-hinay ginagmay ra gyud na siya. Ang tinud-anay
Slow and steady.
ang tinud-anay gyud nga kausaban dili na nimo makitaan pareha og evolution good.
Behind the scenes.
Kanang pareha anang tectonic shift sa kalibutan nga usa ra ni ka isla pag human ito
You don't
millions of years, right? So ang kapag tinuura lang kanang progress di gyud na siya makitaan. Di kuwang ra sa na imong termino nga pila man naka-termino ang presidente unom ka tuig sa Pilipinas, di ba? Sa Amerika tugutlo ra man ka tuig sa
Do you think
Pilipinas.
that's like do you think that's like a pessimistic view or do you think like that is really
That's my view. I don't know if it's pessimistic or optimistic. I'm just saying
but that's the reality. That's what you're
the
trying to
reality.
say.
I think this I think I'm keeping it real. I think this is
Yeah.
honest. Nga kanang progress hinay gyud na siya. Wala gyud overnight success. Wala gyud
yeah.
overnight
Oh, yeah.
change yun. So ang problema sa na tungod sa kahinay sa imong progreso ang mga uban dili maka-feel sa imong nabuhat nga nindot, di ba? So dili sila maka-feel sa buhat nimo nga nindot, then dili sila mutuon nimo. So
That's one of the burdens that they have to carry.
So pakapina nimo og mga tao nga mo criticize nimo kay nangampanya lagi sila pa ilang i-highlight imo mga ngilaan nga gipang buhat, mga nasayop siguro whatever. So
yeah.
samot na tog why
all
balor
the
imo
more.
ang nabuhat, di ba? Mo na nakalisod ng kanang politika. I think I'd rather be in the background,
Yeah.
which is a good place too.
Yeah.
So mo na I think mo na gipanghisgutan sa atong mga kaigsuunan karong panahon na. And of course everybody was talking about Efren Bata Reyes and sila ni Django Bustamante. And one of my biggest surprise good Justin Sa is babae na ang karon ang dili na ni siya the future is already
Female.
here. And it's female as far as billiards goes.
So
kani sa
cool. Grabe.
Rubilin Amit og si Cheska Centeno, mga babae ni sila ni world champions ni sila. Dili ni kanang champion lang sa eskina. Okay, world
Bilyaran.
champion ni sila.
Yeah.
So grabe
Carrying our name on their backs, no? Grabe.
mga babae pagid sila which really
Jiggy, how old were they? Like based on
si Cheska mo to medyo batanon pa murag early 20s pa to siya.
Wow.
Si Rubilin murag 40s na to siya.
Okay.
So medyo layo ilang age disparity pero
And they were here on TMC.
they were here on TMC.
Ago.
They were there at sa
Okay.
the circle sa Tops.
Okay.
And nagsurusuri po na sila sa ubang mga barangay
Yeah.
sa Cebu na
Did we get to have them like on one of the episodes on the stream?
Yeah, they were actually here. We were
Great.
able
So
to
guys, if you wanna
if-
check again, you can go to
we were
Tops
able
Media
to
Center
interview
on
them
YouTube.
on Tambag Mo Chansi.
Perfect.
Oh, so mo na siya.
Did they get to share on sa ilahang unsa man?
What
I'm curious. Are they the type nga all their life nagduwag billiard and then
That's the
No?
interesting part. I'm glad that
That's
you
always what I think about athletes mag-jigging. It's a lifelong pursuit ba?
I am glad that you asked that
If,
question
if
because
they become the greats.
usa sa akong mga gipangutana ni Rubilin Amit kaning katong world champion nga medyo 40 years old na siya. Plus nangutana ko niya na may perception kaning perception kaning Rubilin ba nga kung maayo ka mo billiard pasabot ana nga daghan kay kag cutting classes.
Sikat pag-absent.
Mo man binuang. Binuang ko sa akong amahan na
that's funny.
ang akong amahan pilosopo magana. That's where I got my pagka-pilosopo. Nga billiard mi ba? Yeah, banga man kay kusta mo billiard.
Siya mao na.
Kuwang pagka-cut class do.
That means you're obedient to come to class.
So anyway,
Funny lagi na. Katawa siya.
She kind of giggled and she said, kaning pwede man siguro nga the two can be true. Niingon
Okay.
siya. Kaya she actually graduated. I think she graduated college, and I think she's pursuing higher education while being
until
a
now.
world champion.
Grabe, no?
So kanang mga butangan, they're not exclusive. Dili pwede ka nga maayo ka mo billiard like Rubilin unya makagraduate pug og college, may pug og pangutok. So kaning balance ba?
Yeah.
Fully formed human being siya ba
That's
nga,
nice.
nga bright siya na nakagraduate siya og college. Well, I'm not saying, I'm not claiming she claims to be bright and all of that stuff, but nasa naabtan sad ba sa iyang educational life ni champion pag siya sa
That's
sa
nice. So that's ano lang
billiards,
that's the common misconception for kanang maimo billiards.
No.
Kanang magsig absent.
Sige
That's funny.
Sige cut class.
Cut class kay mo atos bilyaran.
Atos bilyaran. So kung banga ka mo bilyard, pasabot na kuwang ka o cutting class.
So ikaw day Chiki, you're always going to classes.
Dili sad god ako naamo ko sa eskwelahan pero ang akong utok layo man kay sad.
I feel like billiards is in general, I could be wrong. I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but I feel like it's for the most part a very male-dominated sport.
Mo na siya akong punto.
I had no idea that the world champion was a woman.
Yeah.
The world champions rather were women.
Yeah.
The friend I had here earlier a couple weeks ago, si Tants, who we interviewed.
Katong model?
Si
model
Tans.
katong mag-brief-brief.
Mao na yung modeling.
Speaking of mag-brief, funny kayo nga interview ta og kaning model o niya katong bench bench show unsa tawag na?
The bench body fashion show.
Bench bodies, bench
Lorraine
bodies
was there,
fashion
diba?
show nga puros man na nag-brief-brief og kapanti-panti na ang it's just funny the coincidence nga we were talking about that and then
I mean that's that's a I feel like the ignorant way to say it ba. It's a very prestigious fashion show niya. To the ignorant mo na sila nga brief. Sila ka ba?
Really just na.
We don't know.
It sounds like we're crude, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's true. Nag-brief naman gina sila. Unsaon man
at the very level
mo pagbutang di ay. How do you
actually
brief man gina sila diha.
Yeah.
Kapakigol man gina sila diha. Dili na nimo. Let's not butter it up. Let's not sugarcoat it. Ang pagkatinura mo ginigibuhat nila, right? So but the idea is to create a word or a description of something else to make it more prestigious, more palatable, more commercially viable, right?
Yeah, and actually the fashion show in itself has been one of the biggest events for brands like Bench.
Yeah.
And only the top models like sila Lorraine or ang padadon dito, it's not anyone can just join that. I don't think it's a body thing. I don't think it's like if you have the body for it they'll put you in the show. I think you have to achieve something in your industry.
Well, naay mga uban nga silang si Hedilyn Diaz katong weightlifter dito man.
Achieve something in your industry. You have to be influential.
Ang uban diya to kanang ina pero most of it, you have to have a good body. You have to.
I think that's like.
You have to have like
at the bare minimum.
Body.
Yeah, at the bare minimum.
Dili kay bare minimum mo mga kuyaw kayo na mga 20 pack na abot ng liog iyang pak
30 pack.
Abot ng liog iyang pack. Gabiha
Grabe, no?
Aka
na sila Jiki major fasters siguro na sila no dahil
Puerte,
kana mo tinuore nga mag-fasting. But anyways, going back to the conversation
kasi nga naabot na matag break og panti-panti no. Sana
because I was referencing my friend Tans. I remember si Tans he's into billiards man yan. Ana siya na ako nga, do you know to play billiards? No, good. I really don't. And he said, oh, you should learn. That will really impress a lot of guys if a girl knows how to play billiards. And it made me think, yeah, you know what? I just realized ang billiards is a very male-dominated sport. Hence, there's that misconception or there's that cultural thing na a lot of guys would probably be shocked if a girl was good at billiards, diba? Kaya mga laki ra gyud ang magduwa ana. Pero it's nice to hear that the world champions rather they're women. It's so cool. The future is female.
But I'll qualify it. Although babae ni sila, they're actually kaning sakto tomboy.
Okay.
Sa termino na? What's the correct word? Gay. They're gay. Right?
Okay.
They're gay, right?
Like in the way that they present themselves,
They
or
are.
like
I think they really.
Did they talk about their sexuality or something like that?
They didn't, but kuang gid sila, like I can really tell nga they're.
Okay.
They're sakto ba na? They're gay.
I suppose. I don't know
tomboy, right? Tomboy.
basin.
Anyway, okay, I think
maybe tomboy is
yeah.
appropriate given their kanang how they express themselves.
Yeah, but
sa appearance ba?
One of them brought her girlfriend and all that stuff.
Okay.
Tomboy, there's no doubt in my mind that tomboy sila, diba?
Okay.
Anyway, which brings me to what I probably want to talk about for a little bit here. Nakinumdum ang kugod nga, nag-ingon sila nga women actually are succeeding now in life in general, like not just in sports but in corporate life, in many things,
many other facets of life
that were not expected of them. Mga areas sa kinabuhi nga murag
initially were male dominated.
Ingon ka nga kanang billiard, mura man nagbabae man, alalaki man nga sport niya, human.
I like that.
Surprising kaayo nga kaning babae na ang ni succeed sa sport. Ang iingon nila kuno nga dili kuno na ang pasabot ana nga in reality ang babae ni succeed. Ang naitabo kuno na Justin is this is very interesting take. This is not me talking. I'm just quoting what I remember a few years ago. This was during the time of Hillary Clinton, I think, when she ran for president and lost to Donald Trump the first time Donald Trump became president. Nag-ingon sila Justin nga dili kuno ang pasabot niya na nga ang mga babae ni succeed kuno. Ang pasabot kuno ana Justin is women just got better at becoming men. Mo kuno ni pasabot ana. Okay. Mo na observation sa mga tao ba nga for example kanang politics, for example, kadaghana na they just got better at the patriarchy, at what
was already existing as a system.
The system provided for by society. So mo hisgot nila. So which actually kaning that thought reopened in my head, in my mind. Kaya nakakita man ko nila nga this is a male dominated sport and they're women but they're tomboy, di ba? So, muna siya akong kuan nga basig tinuod to sa nga women just got better at becoming men. Muna ang kaning
what does it mean to become men man?
Muna ang murag description, the shortcut, the what do you call that? The sweeping statement, right?
Okay.
Muna siya nga women just got better at becoming men. Of course, that's a very slippery slope and that's a very controversial thing for me to say, right? But namin ay nuance.
That's okay.
Ang pasabot
there's a context behind it, man.
Yeah. So muna siya. So what does it mean to become man like a patriarch?
Like I'm trying to understand that. When you say women,
like a patriarch, like a man, like what a man is, like a thing.
You mean like so if
like
I
macho, for example.
So women just became better at adapting the system.
So the way
men's system like that
because there's no female way of doing things. There's no. So that's the system.
We've adapted.
That's a system that men started, and you're just
and it's stuck around for the longest time.
For a long time.
Okay.
Even the Bible is written by all men, right? So dugay na kay nastanan nga butanga. So you have to know how to navigate through that maze, through that structure. So it's not that there is a women's way of doing things. It's just that the women just got better at doing man stuff.
Okay.
What do you think of
Makes
that?
sense. I'm trying to understand first, like what exactly that means, but I think I can relate to it in such a way that it's kind of like what Will Smith said regarding racism.
You quote a lot of Will Smith. I noticed,
yeah.
right? Did you read his most recent book?
No.
This was a book that he wrote just before the Slappergate or Slapgate, whatever, with Chris Rock and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
no,
And
I have.
that was actually a very personal book, and
Ah.
I remember nakakita ko sa interview niya ni Oprah Winfrey, and then it was Oprah Winfrey actually kind of shed a tear because of the book. Anyway,
Oh.
so what did Will Smith say?
Yeah, I don't know if it relates, but he mentioned something before as to like the prevalence of racism daw. Ingo siya, it's not that karon lang na siya nahitabo. In fact, it's something that's been existing for a long time. It's just been documented now.
Okay.
It's just been highlighted now. So I feel like maybe in the same way, if I were to understand the sweeping statement that you were trying to make, I think that makes sense. Na for the longest time, you know, like women's capabilities, they were always. It's not like karon naman said nagpakitang gilas ang mga women. It's not like now, you know, people decided to, or women rather decided to do their best. I think they've been doing their best in different industries, in different facets of life, but it's only now that they're being highlighted and that
Or
maybe,
they're succeeding.
Or I think there's always been a success.
Okay.
It's just now there are more platforms for them to be included.
What do you mean by there's always been success? What do you mean?
Like I forgot who's this famous scientist that created what's her name? Marie
Curie? Marie Curie?
That one.
Curie?
Oh. Or there were so many other scientists, for
Curie.
example, and philosophers, in
Yeah.
fact, that or were behind all of these scholarly kanang theories and all of that. Pero wala man silang documented.
They're
you know?
more of an exception more than the rule. For example,
Yeah.
philosophy is usually men. So maybe like
Well, usually men ang na-highlight because ang ilang books man it's also given the context of society at that time. So for example, Plato and
That's why-
Aristotle,
that's
one
why-
of them,
that's why.
their teacher was a woman. Pero syempre, ang mag-grant
Gamay ra na
nga
sila. Those are exceptions.
Yeah.
Those are exceptions.
Ang
You
mag-grant
you have
nga
to admit
books.
those are exceptions, right?
um
Because there were like lots of women. Like there were
Yeah,
like a few women. And they never actually saw the light of day because maybe their work was not highlighted, right?
yeah. So I think it's not that now women are succeeding only now. I think success of women has always been there. It's just na now there's more platform for them to share in that success with men. So murag karon lang na highlight.
Is that a what is that? Is that
Another sweeping statement.
Is that a claim or is that where's that based on? When you
I
say
think it's
that?
just another sweeping statement in contrast to the other
Because
sweeping statement.
there are always exceptions, right? Every time we make a statement, there's always exceptions to whatever statement. And I think, Mangod, the women succeeding was an exception back then. And in fact, we were just talking about how Rubilin and Cheska are succeeding in a men's sport. They are in our in our minds, in our
in a male-dominated
Oh,
sport,
so
given the context.
exception na siya.
Oh.
Exception na to, di ba?
Yeah, I think maybe
Kanang law, for example, kanang law. Lawyer mag-lawyer man ka pohon Justin,
we'll
sa?
see.
Kanang law ang perceptions and that's actually a male-dominated career also. Am I correct? For a long time. For a long
for
time.
the longest time, yeah.
Bago-bago na siya. That's only recent memory nga daghan kayong babae na mga abogada. Pero before, puro sige na lalaki. Unya, nakinumdum ko nga proud kayo first woman lawyer. Diba? It was like a... I even remember...
No, even in our government,
Yeah.
the fact that we have like 2 female presidents in our time, which I'm always happy about. No, like
Yeah.
I feel like in that sense,
Pero mo lagi.
we're more advanced than
Mo
the
lagi.
United
So-
States. At
so-
least kita natin.
So mo lagi. Pero ang pangutana nila na, did they do it femininely? Did they do it as a woman should? Or did they just get better at the patriarchy? Did they just get better at the way men do things in let's say in politics, and they did not create a way in which more women would succeed? Kaya lahi man nagunagod kung imuhang
If you pave the way
Oh.
versus you cheat the system, or like you figured out a way to maneuver in in
Yeah.
a way that aligns with the existing
system, yeah. So
Okay.
lahi man ang maghimo ka og usa ka butang nga agianan og mahimo sa kag makaagi ka ng lugar o niya
Yeah.
pero nagliko-liko lang ka para
Kaabot ka.
mutuman ka sa mga norms
Yeah.
anang lugar.
Yeah, I think that's
Kay-
how society works. Anything that prosper also,
Yeah.
anything that prospers has to be in line with what the system is.
Yeah.
So if the current system is patriarchy, for example, then for a woman to succeed is to also abide by those rules somehow. And then maybe when they get to a certain position, that's when you can, once a man, like
maybe try to change the things a little bit, right?
Yeah. So is that how you think like these women in politics were able to succeed? It's
I'm not saying that. I'm just relaying to you a school of thought. You know, a way of looking at the world nga. Because it was triggered by the fact nga katulad silang Robelin ug si Cheska are kind of manly.
okay.
You know, because they're gay, right? So mo na akong masabot nga mo naka-trigger na niya.
Now they got better
Oh,
at doing something manly.
yeah. Ang usa sa mga kaning generalizations kanang mga stereotypes sa mga babae side is like for example kami ni Kuya Magic maghiskot ang gimianan niya pirmi nga.
Yeah.
We need a woman
Kuya
here.
Magic.
We need a woman here, Jiggy, because we're like a pigsty here, you know.
That's
You
why
know-
I'm here.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Kaya
Flower.
kanang mga lalaki good kanang murag always big picture bitaw.
That's funny.
Ana
That's
bitaw
funny.
niya pag human kanang magsurastorya, magmeeting-meeting niya, way babae mo lista. Ikaw malimtan ra. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's why there's also that saying like when you go into someone's house and it's such a mess, but they would say this place could use a woman's touch. Like
Yeah.
it basically means that it can be beautified,
Yeah.
and it's like it's insinuating, but that the only way that is if a woman were to be involved in
correct.
that. Makes
Correct,
sense.
Correct. O kana pong journaling, writing, di ba? Kanang attention to detail ba? Mo na giningon nila if you want to get things done, let a woman do it, right? So kanang ang mga lalaki mong usually are kanang mga lagi big picture thinkers, kanuhay nga long-term thinking and planning and strategizing, but when it comes to actually, buckling down and actually doing it,
The details.
you gotta get a woman to do it. I don't know. I don't know if that's a correct
I mean,
picture.
It's neither correct nor wrong.
Okay.
I think the more important thing to ask is why is that the case? Like I wouldn't rather saying it's wrong. Men are it's wrong to think that men are big picture thinkers. Like I'd like to understand also why we came to that point in society. Why is it like who set? That's the thing. They're like, oh, who set that system up though? Like it's effectively men who set that system up. So I'm trying to like date back to why that's a thing. Why is it that, like in that sense, why is it that they would trust your assistant to be a female rather than a man? Like if you were to have a meeting, why do you need it to be a woman to take down the notes? Why can't like you take down the notes? Why can't it be a male assistant to take down the notes? Why is it gotta be like, oh, there needs to be a woman
Mo
here?
lagi kay
Diba?
attention to detail man. Panuhay. Mo man ang
That's a trait assigned to women.
attention to detail ba murag OCD ba? Ano bitaw di ba?
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say that's I wouldn't say that's wrong or correct. I want to understand lang how we got to that point of assigning that trait to women. Like, why are we in? How come we've come to a point?
Why is society assigning that trait to a woman? You mean? Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Because that's reality. That's again, like you said, we have to be real. That's reality that we would think like if we were to choose two assistants, one is male, one is female. Diba? If depending on the task you need someone to take down your notes for the meeting. Diba? You're more likely in most cases to choose the woman
Kung dili
because
gali babae, kanang bayot, kanang gay. Sad.
you're more likely to choose that.
See, na ako laughing sound effects. But that's actually true.
That's the truth.
That's
Yeah.
actually true. Kung dili guys la babae ilang kuwaon kay kanang bayot.
Same thing good if mangita kag driver na iduha ka aplikante. Babae o laki, di ba? You're more likely to choose the male driver because you associate being competent in driving more to men than women. So like, why is that ba?
I wouldn't think that is the real reason because I think manggod men are bugoy-bugoy ba? Kanang bugoy, kanang okay ra nila kaning magpungko-pungko, okay ra nila dugay matug, o kanabang bugoy ba? Bugoy, rough, right? So
Okay.
kanang mga babae manggod kaning basig kaning kung daghang tao like dili makasecure nimo kay kaning let's just say gamay siya or wala siya kaning
Okay. So
siya,
there's utility
muscle,
in that
ano
sense.
bitaw?
Okay.
So murag dili kay intimidating kay imong driver kanang weak kay tanan if ever, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So again, kanang butanga, you want a tough driver.
So it depends also on the purpose in which they're hired for.
Oo.
Makes sense.
So
Okay.
kung ako kung papilion ko nimo kung maayo nga mo drive nga babae, maayo mo drive nga lalaki, piliyon ko ang babae kung driving skills lang.
Why,
Kay
man?
kanang attention to detail part man na sa di ka mabangga, di ba? Di ba? Kung di ka wa kay attention to detail,
You would trust that more.
I would
Okay,
I would
makes
think
sense.
a woman is probably less likely to scratch a car than a man,
Than a
di ba?
man. Okay.
Kaya kanang mura kanang lalaki kanang mura haras kay ba haras.
What's haras gani kanang
Kanang mura pataka lang ba
reckless?
reckless,
reckless,
yeah,
okay.
reckless. So
Yeah, so it makes me think like how come we've come to that?
you know, like, di ba, let's go back a few
Yeah.
years. Let's go back 50,
Well, let's
100
look through
years.
like
Nga,
an
di ba,
anthropological perspective.
The perception nga the woman belongs to the house at home, di ba? And then the man is the one who's working, di ba? Trabaho dito.
Oh yeah,
di ba?
that was the system for a very very long.
That's
The breadwinner
yeah,
system
and in fact, remnants of that are still very evident now.
in Filipino society,
in Filipino society,
particularly.
di ba? Especially katong mga tiguangan.
Oh, yeah.
Mo ginang ilahang pagtuong ang mga babae sa balay, ang mga lalaki mo
O raise
trabaho,
sa
di ba?
bata, oh.
Anya kanang pag-raise og mga bata, pag luto og pagkaon, pag buhat ang mga butang sa balay, kinanglan mo ng attention to detail kay kung dili ka mag-attention to detail mahilo ang imong pakanon pagkaon o niya ang mga bata kung dili kuha kay attention to detail nga matay nimong mga anak mga
Yeah.
sakit na sila.
Yeah.
So mo na nga ako ang simpleton's way of describing mo siguro nga ang mga babae ang perception is na sila attention to detail kay ilang mga trabaho sa balay importante man kayo tanan kinanglan man gyud nga mitikuloso ka kay kung dili ka mamitikuloso imong anak basig mukaon na siya tabletas nga dili mao. For example,
I mean, yep.
that's my simpleton more simplistic way of understanding
understanding it.
ngano nga we have assigned society has assigned being attention to detail oriented to women because of that. Ikaw, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Pero I would also say if it's just in terms of avoiding danger at home, you know, like also the role of being a protector, even in like caveman times, has always been assigned to the male. So if it's really about protecting your kids and making sure that they're out of harm's way, then it doesn't necessarily have to be ang woman, ang mama, ang mo take care. It could be we could also argue given that nga mas maayo ang mo protect ang papa, ang male, to make sure that they're avoiding harm kay like from the very beginning, you know, being a hunter was assigned to a man and being a nurturer. Pero I think
asa man na siya like where does that manifest like asa man na siya like in fossils and all that stuff. It's usually the men who
I think in like
who protect the
in early society, I
men,
think
the women asa.
Yeah, in early society, roles were already given to, diba? That's the case for the early mga Homo sapiens. Nga roles were already assigned as early as then. Nga the women would be in charge of picking berries and other herbs, and then the men would go out and hunt for the animals, protect their families from animals and stuff. So if I were to,
I think magod ka na magod na itabo na siya because na magod down days ang babae. Diba? I think there was a time siguro mga, you know, the first man and the first woman maybe nga aside from Adam and Eve maybe their offspring whatever. Gadungan sila pag-hunt kay parehas lagi gutom. Unya ang babae kaning demonstration man or ang babae na mabdos man for example. So
there's a downtime.
Dili na siya ka hunting so
Okay, makes sense.
maingon na lang sang laki siguro.
Ako na yung hunt.
Ako nila hunt oy kay kaning didako man na imong tiyan niya.
Yeah, and in the same way, if both of them were assigned to take care of an offspring also, the offspring 100% mas the basic for survival, the mother's milk, it comes from the mom manggid. So if you were to leave a dad alone with a child for like 9 months versus a mom alone with a child, mas dako ang chances of survival. So I think that's also why the role of a nurturer, of a homemaker, of raising kids is primarily attached to being a woman. Kay syempre ikaw may mabuhay na when you have because of the milk.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Even though the father is a protector, lahi ramang gid nang the initial thing that you need as a child more than your first source of food and vitamins kay ang milk man gid. Yung man kahatag ana ang male.
Correct,
so
correct.
maybe that's why also it
makes
sense, I guess.
So mo na siya nga ang role sa babae niadtong una inana because mo man ang biological truth.
Okay, that's nice. Biological truth.
But development happened maybe like 100 years ago or even less. Nga becoming a mother is before magod pagtuo na to babae ka mamabdos ka And that's like another biological truth back then. That's what they lived in, di ba? Nga, kung mabay ka, mamabdos ka.
Pero now,
Pero karon manggod,
what's it like?
it's becoming a choice now. Dili na naingon nga mamabdos ka, babae man ka, manganak yun ka, kay babae man ka. It's becoming a choice now because of the invention of contraception, di ba? Because of the the women's rights movement. Nga maka-decide na sila nga, I'm not going to become a mother. It's my decision. I don't want to bear kids because it's too complicated.
So for the longest time,
it's too dangerous,
life-threatening.
Yeah,
So for the longest time, that expectation for them to be childbearers was like very much imposed.
Assumption na siya. Mo na siya. Why pangutan na? Babae ka, mga anak, yuga. Pero karon lahi naman tarong mga pangutok, di ba?
Like,
nanay contraception. So pwede na ka, you can engage
okay.
in just the pure pleasure of having sex instead of kaning giving birth, di ba? Kaya atong unang perception ng sex is just really
to give
birth, di ba?
Yeah.
Pero like sex is also pleasurable. It's also sex actually is therapeutic. There are so many benefits to having sex. So dili lang na para sa pagpanganak ang paghimamat paghilawas sa laing tao, di ba?
That concept has been like strengthened over the years through kanang what you mentioned, kanang mga movements.
Mga inventions also. So that kanang the
hence the idea of like kanang my what do you call that? My body, my choice, the movements, mga yan, ano?
Daghan kay mga inventions, mga pagtuon na to.
I feel like that's do you think that's a Western concept? Because I feel like maybe
of course.
Dili ka siya accepted pa kaayo here. Or maybe it is. I'm not very exposed to that pa.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I think of ingana nga movements like freedom and contraceptives, I automatically think of like, it's very Western.
Absolutely. Because they're more
vocal.
They're more
something.
civilized. They're more their civilizations, their democracies are more mature than ours. That's the historic way of putting it. I'm no historian, but that's what I'm saying. Daghan kay mga inventions, Justine, nga we think are just nothing. For example, kanang sanitary napkin for women, right?
Oh my gosh,
Imagine,
that's not been too long ago daw.
Apparently,
like I asked my great grandma, diri sa Philippines, there's a time when like they don't use that.
Imagine kung gidugo ka, kung menstruation ka, magkadugo imuhang lawas paghuman.
Yeah.
So magunsa man ka. So atong una siguro agi gawas ang
apparently.
Mosamot na okay sa problema.
That's what they told me nga. They don't go to school, they don't go out.
Kanarabang tigre or lion kung makasimot nagdugo. Dukuron ka, sama man nimo pag-hunt na ron kung nagadugo ka, di ba? So pag inbento sa napkin, so ang mga babae maski gidugo sila, makalakaw-lakaw, makagawa sila sa balay, di ba? Grabe kayo. That was a earth-shattering invention, I believe.
Yeah.
For women, for society.
Yeah.
Unya, nakinumdum ko, this is an anecdote told to me by my good friend Mike Torres, who's the designer of this beautiful structure that we're inhabiting here at TOPS. Ingon siya nga, Jig, kanang tubig ba? Wala man na natong tubig. Pero sa ubang lugar sa Cebu, karon in 2025, grabe kay importante ng tubig aside from kaning makainom kag tubig, physically and healthy. Kanang mga uban nga mga lalaki o mga babae, especially kanang mga babae kanang dili sila makaligo, dili sila makalimpyo sila ang kagalingon, dili na sila manggawas og bahay kay baho man na sila. Ano bitaw? So grabe kay naka-importante even in this day and age karon. Kanang tubig nga not just because for drinking and for kaning
for
washing,
sanitary purposes,
but
rather
for kanang dili na sila manggawas kay mauwaw sila, kay baho sila, kay wa sila ligo. So ana lang grabe gyud kay bang issues nato bang.
No, I feel like even in daily life, I can't imagine like we use water too much for everything. Like washing your utensils, not only for yourself, but there's just too much things that depend on that. Yeah, I think he's right. Ano na hisgutan man niya ang tubig, getting water up here sa ang mga pipe and everything?
No. Kaning comment siya, mura man siya kaning rotary bitaw niya. Na sila mga project.
Okay.
Kaning para makatabang sa ato ang mga kaigsuonan nga naglisod ba. So muna iyang gipili kanang to provide water to as many people as possible.
Nice.
So muna siya, Justine, nga daghan kay mga developments kanang plumbing, for example, nga makasaka ng tubig, kanang napkin nga ang mga babae makalakaw-lakaw
Yeah,
na
which is
kanang contraception nga kung
fairly new apparently.
makikilawas ka dili ka mabuntis kung dili ka ganahan kaning unsa na mga pills and all of that stuff. So daghan kay mga inventions nga nag give way to this women empowerment movement because kung saan man yung kaning empower kung dili level ang playing field, di ba?
Yeah.
So
you're
kansig
held back in that way. Okay, makes sense.
So mo na siya nga I think that
I can't imagine if napkins weren't invented. They should get to keep up in the world of sports in itself.
Correct, yeah.
In the world of sports in itself, like and I do ask a lot of athletes about this, no nga. And that's why a lot of the commercials also for napkins, okay? They feature kanang really active women, no? Kanang mga swimmers, for example, like kanang champions in swimming. For them to be able to reach that level, you know, there are no days off, even when their period tells them nga, yeah, it's time to rest. They can't simply call out of the competition because they've got their period. So that really, those inventions like napkins, tampons, and all that, they really help.
Absolutely.
Help them makaangat sa level of ano ba.
Gamay, diba? So mo siguro
So that's what you meant by the downtime. That makes sense. Nga na downtime ba.
Mo siguro yung Justin nga ang lalaki karon is really just physically bigger and stronger. It's because of the millions of years of downtime siguro of the female of the species or of course it's also because of the anatomy of women, right? And the physiology of women. Lahi mo gitawag chemical composition, right?
Yeah.
Female
hence
and
the
women,
argument
right?
that you will never ever be equal man gyud biologically pa lang. Like like there's always that disparity.
Kana mo kung para nako like kind of concept of equality I think is
what do you think about
that should be a very nuanced conversation. It can't be just about it's not a simple conversation, but because I think what we're looking for is not equality. What we're looking for is kanang everybody has a chance, number one, and number two, everyone with all of our differences is given a chance to succeed. Unsa termino na
Equity,
right? Equity, right? Not equality, but equity, because we're all different.
Rather,
right?
you're acknowledging the differences. You're acknowledging that dili man gyud equal. So ang ato lang is how do we make it without compromising the differences? How do we make people have the same shot?
Correct.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So if you want to join this conversation, if you want to make it an equitable conversation, naapoy inyong inasan mo ikatambag, i-text lang mi diha.
Yeah.
I-text lang mi 0999-887-6070. Ato ami sa mo ang Facebook page at Tops Media Center. Pag message lang diha or atong YouTube at Tops Media Center. We're actually there live. You can see us, Justine and I, at Tops Media Center on the tubes on YouTube.
Exactly. And yeah, busy kaayo mi here sa Tops for the past days. If you guys want to check out more of the events and the interviews that Jiggy had over the weekend, especially with our world billiard champions, and they can just check out the episode here as well at Tops Media Center sa YouTube. There are replays of each and every episode, so don't worry about it, guys. Yeah.
So yeah, Justin, ikaw, kaning I know nga you like this conversation, and in fact I think you your eyes wide open when you talk about equality and all of that stuff. Where are you in this equality, women's equality, the feminism movement, Justin? Where are you? Ang ako na hinumduman a few moments ago ni hisgot ka nga this is a Western construct. The reason good for that is, again, like I
Mas
mentioned,
vocal sila about that.
is that their civilizations started a little bit earlier than ours. Their democracies started
and ours is very much patterned over theirs anyway.
ahead of ours. Their constitution were formed long time ago. So mas mahog sila og an argument can be made, but this is an argument that they're more mature. They're a more mature democracy. They're more mature civilizations, diba? So mo na siya nga gikan gyud na nila.
Yeah. You know, as much as I always want to root for women and women's success and equity and feminism, I wouldn't say that I agree with all modern or contemporary or modern feminist beliefs. It's just because of my personal preference. But
what's your personal preference?
Like yeah, I'm trying my best to not be canceled. But
No, nobody will cancel us, Jesse. We're uncancelable.
we're uncancelable. I get torn in between wanting to empower women, for example, to make choices for their own bodies, and at the same time, like I feel like there's this I have a moral dilemma ba, because I'll also stand by what I feel is like from natural law what is morally right. So there are some issues that arise from like feminism that sometimes I still have to think a lot about, or like I don't have the usual others might say it might not be supportive or pro-feminist nga view. So for example, like with abortion and other issues like that, diba? If you're pro-feminist, then you would view abortion as something that is like a right that all women should have, diba?
Yeah.
Pero because of my personal preferences, I don't necessarily support that. And so in a way,
What don't you support? You don't support
like abortion, for
abortion.
example.
Okay. So
yeah.
you don't support because again, kind of abortion is a very complicated story.
Yeah.
Right?
So then,
So do you don't support abortion, period, or do you support abortion to, let's say, make sure that the mother is alive?
I think I'll just look.
What if the child is threatening the life of the mother, and the
Yeah.
child has a small chance of surviving because it's probably maybe I don't know, like defective or whatever.
Yeah, I think I'll just look into the ano na lang of like to be specific, like legalizing, for example, in legal framework, legalizing abortion.
But legalizing abortion, even if it's threatening the life of a woman, you're not going to support that.
That's something I have to
Across
think
the board.
about pa. Yeah.
So dili pa across the board imuhang belief about it. Na,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's across the board.
Okay.
So yeah, as I mentioned, there's something. So when you ask me where are you right now within like these modern feminist beliefs, so it's hard for me to like place myself and
Okay.
say like, oh, I'm really pro for this, because as much as I want to empower women, and I do subscribe to a lot of feminist beliefs,
Okay.
there are also some topics that if you hear my stand on it, you'd also think, isn't that counter to feminism? Like,
nganong mura man kag ningon
Diba?
mura ka
murag,
makancel kang hadlok, nganong dili man kaganahan magpahibaw sa imong gibati, Justin. Kung i-cancel ka, Justin, that means you're already something, right?
Yeah.
You're someone already nga who is worthy of being canceling. Akong paminaw, wala man ko. Ikaw, paminaw niyo. Nako, wala man ko. Di mo ko makancel. Kaya kinsama ko ba?
who's gonna say, who cares?
I'm a nobody, right? Who's gonna cancel a nobody, right?
Yeah, I think it's just if I wasn't asked about a particular issue yet, and then I have to bring it up, I'd rather not say until I'm asked about it.
I'm asking you now.
Yeah.
Oh.
So when you asked me about feminism, wala man ka naghiskot specifically about abortion. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I was like
But you-
hesitant. Like,
but
should
you
I
brought
just
it up. You
bring
brought-
it as an
you-
example?
You brought up abortion,
Yeah.
right? Oh.
But I feel like that's the best example I would give. That's why right now, if I were to navigate and someone were to ask me, like, where are you now within the feminist beliefs? Murag, I'm still trying to understand also. Okay, again, there are a lot of opposing beliefs in myself already with that. Like, I can't say I'm totally all for one belief side. Hybrid sad kay ko for a lot of beliefs, like, and I think that's also what makes up like our complex belief system as humans. Nga, you can believe in so many things and sahay mag-clash sila.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I want to be spiritual and very much in line with morality and Natural law.
morality of your faith, you mean?
of my faith,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
and natural law in philosophy na lang, even not in a spiritual level in philosophy, kay there are some modern concepts that sahay murag you need to bend and adapt also, I feel. So murag it's not I'm not like an across the board person ba nga murag black and white akong beliefs. Murag there's so many gray
Gray areas,
areas pa that I need to figure out pa also ba. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, and that's probably most people. Most people are like that. They're confused. They're not trying to navigate through the
to make
mess
an-
of
And I
this
think-
thing called life. That's most people, Justin.
I think that's how it should be also. I don't think we should be very black and white
yeah.
with every single belief.
Para
no?
mangguna ko, Justin, kanang mga movements like feminism. Mura sila og- it looks they look very straight and narrow. They look like Ano yun di ba? The
But
reason
actually,
the reason for that, I think lang because I think just like again going back to the music law, supporting local music conversation we had that was crafted by one of the counselors, si Joel Ganera. Kana manggong movement manggod, it has to be like a sharp object to pierce through a wall, right? So kung ang imuhang mga concepts and beliefs and ideas to forge forward a movement, dili siya sharp, dili siya isog, dili siya radical. Number one, wa siguro yung mabuhat. And number two,
okay, it won't spark conversation.
it won't spark conversation. And number three, when it hits the wall, it's not tough enough because the wall is thick or big or wide or far reaching, right? Or the glass ceiling, the proverbial glass ceiling is very thick. So kanili na sharp object imong
Tuslok diha.
tuslok ana dili gyud na matarog.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
mo nang mga movements for me lang mo na sang murag radical kayo because I guess I'm assuming the best in people nga the crafters know and believe nga grabe man kay ni daghan pa kay tagi factors nga i-consider nga number one, can we afford to make this movement succeed, di ba? Kining lang nga nagkwarta ang movement, di ba?
That's number one, budget.
Number two, kaning atong kontra kaning nga mulihok ka ni sila kung ang ato lang pangayon kay kanira imog yung pangayon layo mo siguro ning atong reach for the stars and you hit the moon lang siguro. I think part
So
of that
being
is
being radical,
protracted.
being radical is a big factor that you think is needed in every movement.
yeah, for it to move
To succeed,
forward,
really.
to succeed.
Yeah.
And because they know the crafters of the movement know it's not going to be implemented the way they want it. It's going to be a watered down version of whatever they want to
Okay,
happen.
makes
Kibaw man
sense,
sila
makes
na,
sense.
right? So I think again believing that people are really inherently good, I think that's why movements seem kind of radical in the beginning.
That's the the purpose of that.
Oh.
Ngano radical siya.
Oh, mo na
Yeah,
siya.
speaking of gray areas and like navigating through movement, it's kind of like if someone were to ask me also, what is your stand particularly on what is your stand on like suicide, for example?
My
Diba?
stand on suicide? Are you
No, if
asking me?
I'm just sharing, but like how it's important that you're not too black and white on beliefs. That there are some gray areas, which we talked about this a couple episodes ago. What are the dangers of being too idealistic, diba? To subscribe to an ideology so much that it like when does it become dangerous?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
I
talked
think
about
like
that, right?
yeah, diba? We talked about that. So I think sometimes there is merit to having a gray area in these radical ideas. Kay like for example, one of the ideologies nga I hold dear kay ang religious beliefs. So if I were to only base like my opinion on suicide only on that, then I'll always think that everyone who committed suicide is a sinner, is gonna go to hell and something like that. It's very radical, right? Pero there are these new movements like mental health movements, and it also contradicts. Like, I value psychology so much that, and we know the truth of like mental illness and how it really drives you to decisions that are not necessarily kind of sound mind, right? Although a large portion of it is up to your choice. It's like any other illness nga, to a certain extent. Sometimes you have no control over also. So again, just like with my opinion on abortion, naay mga gray areas ba nga, ang duha ka conflicting beliefs within me, kay I try to adjust them to make sense of like a particular
That's called thinking, yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be for me. You need to form gray areas. Dili kay pwede radical ra kay ka.
And also, it's also possible that two things can be true at the same time, right? Kanang
that
idea
too.
ba?
Yeah.
Kanang idea. 'Cause
Yeah.
people think that it's just this or that,
Yeah.
right? It's possible that both are true, right?
So
It's-
how do you make sense of that then? Diba? If both are true.
What do you mean?
Like
Like for example, abortion. Balik ta diha. You don't think that abortion should be legal, but if it threatens the life of the mother, then it should be legalized in that way.
so that's like the
So those are two things that
they
are-
can coexist at the same
they,
time.
They can coexist, right? But if your beliefs in your religion is so strong and everything hinges on that, it's your be all and end all, because it's written by an omniscient, an all-powerful God. So whatever it says there in the book is it is what it is. You can't change it. Then di ka maka-change imong mind. You cannot
Yeah.
say I'm gonna do this, but maybe like, so you're not as open. Mo na yung diferensya siguro, Ana. I think a lot of that has got to do with your beliefs.
Yeah, and a lot of the issues now in society really test your beliefs ba nga
Yeah.
maka-form gid ka ng mga exemptions,
Yeah,
maka-form
yeah.
gid ka ng mga gray areas like makulkog yun imong
Makul.
di ba?
Murag kugmo.
Di like master imong thoughts ba, di ba? Is that the right way to say it? Kulkog?
Kanang kulkog usually ilong na or kaning lungag na kanang kanal na kulkogang kanal be kay na stuck up
So,
ta.
wait, kulkog doesn't mean sturdy ay?
Stir.
Like kanang
Kulkog.
ano siya ba? Gi-stir
Pwede
up?
sad, sige. Pwede rin ato ng kulkog.
Kulkog. Can I use it? Am I using it right? Top of the morning to Mark Barbadillo.
Oy,
He's-
asam ni si Mark Barbadilla.
Mark Barbadillo is chatting us right now on our Tops Media Center YouTube channel.
Ganahan ko sa atong conversation, Justin. Ganahan ko na atong gisgutan da.
Yeah, we'll talk about kulkoging more.
Go.
Kulkoging more in the next days. That's
Ani na tong bato na kay ako ganahan pa ko makigistorya nimo aning atong butang atong gisgutan katanong buntaga. Unsa gani atong gisgutan karong buntaga about gray
so many
areas,
things.
right?
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. But ako kahiyon na kay gusto nan gyud.
Yeah. We need a bathroom break.
Ikaw kahiyon jaga?
I'll go after you. It's
sige,
fine.
sige.
So we'll play the song na request ni Mark
Okay.
Barbadillo. Hi
Sige,
sir, ma'am.
sige.
Can I request a song please?
Okay.
Summer Days by
Okay.
Aiden Duque. Summer na ba?
No,
Sige.
kahiyon sa kay ko.
That's the main reason. Oh, that's of course
A different kind of hot, right? Side to choose. Like, must we pick a side? Is that important that we pick a side?
And I'm glad because these kinds of conversations, these are things that we can stretch throughout many episodes. You
Yeah.
know, they're just different like variations of them. Diba, a couple weeks ago we talked about like
I feel like we're all having the same conversation, but in different
different forms lang, different contexts.
Different context, yeah.
Which for me is important because that's how it is. It's not like one conversation fits everything.
Mo laging
Right?
important. Mo nang ang pasabot na kung importante kayo nang imuha gyud i-divulge imuhang persuasion, imuhang political, philosophical.
You think it's important to be open about that?
Scientific and religious. Kay that informs man the way you navigate through the world.
Yeah.
Ana man ka.
Yeah.
So mo na
And it's also nice to hear other people's opinions. So we're glad nga na mag-comment diri sa atong mga live stream. We have Martin Andales who says, I really enjoyed listening and watching you guys. It's a very sensitive topic which needs broad and wide understanding. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. No, thank you, Martin Andales, for
taga
listening.
Cordova ni siya, taga Cordova.
Wow. Thank you so much for listening to our
Daghang
topic.
salamat dia sa paminaw ni mo, Martin. Ingon siya nga, I just do
Difficult conversations ba?
what is the right thing to do. What is so again?
Okay.
But that's a open-ended statement because what is the best and what is the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, because if you ask someone, depended. That's what's so interesting about conflicting ideas and difficult conversations. Kung pangutan-aw nimo what is the right thing to do, lahir good for different people. Like depends on which in what lens they use ba.
Ingon sila kuno ang simple answer kuno anang pangutana is do no harm. Do no harm.
Is that even possible? Because there are other kanang I know,
when you make a decision ba,
do no harm.
do no harm.
Yeah, but I forgot there are some philosophical kanang theories or kanang schools of thought ba nga that would state man good that there's always harm in anything that you do. So it's impossible to not do no harm kay na ay ma-disadvantage either way.
The least kung dili ka maka 100% do no harm, then the least harm.
Yeah, but then that's also very utilitarian og belief kay murag like mura na siya train tracks kung naay usa ka tawo didto nya adiri 5 ka buok, which one would you ligis?
Unsa gito nga nga thought experiment?
I forgot what it's called, but that backs it up bang murag utilitarian kayo nga the least harm for the most good.
Ganahan ko makikistorya ng moral dilemma. That can you explain to Martin Andales and to our listeners unsa gana siya nga philosophical problem gali murag thought experiment ba nga involving a train, right? And people dying. Can you break it down to us in a more bring it down to earth for us because kana siya marag lofty kana siya nga concept. Go ahead.
It is. So in understanding, because just to bank off Martin Andales. Martin Andales comment din na siya nga in making decisions he just does what's best and what is the right thing to do.
Okay.
But then one thing you have to consider man good is in determining what is the best and what is the right thing to do, it depends how would you describe that? Like what is morality? What is right and wrong day to you? So for most people in defining that in the earlier days, they came up with this concept nga.
Trolley problem, right?
Trolley problem, yeah. They came up with the concept of utilitarianism. It's like it's the idea that what is good is what benefits the most number of people.
Okay.
So ang kinabag-an ang kanang daghan maka-benefit is what is good. So they posed a problem. It's called the trolley problem. If you're in a train daw and there are 2 tracks leading to different directions, one side is naay usa ka tawo nakalingkod on the track. The other side is there's 5 people makalingkod on the track.
Okay.
So if we were to understand utilitarianism, we're gonna say what is right is what benefits the most number of people. Then you would justify nga sakto gyud ang makaligis ka sa or makaagi ka sa track nga makaligis kag usa ka tawo.
Usara ka tawo
kaysa makaligis kag mga 5.
Okay.
But then it doesn't necessarily make it also like that decision was right. It just means that was a better decision.
Yeah.
That's the best option at that time.
Less wrong.
Less wrong. Less na lang wrong because it benefits the most number of people.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I think that's just one of the ways that people can navigate through what is right and wrong.
Yeah.
Kanang utilitarianism nga point of view. No?
I think one of the factors you have to consider in that trolley problem also is kinsa maning tawhana kung imuha ng amahan.
Kanato.
Kung usa ka buok, ang 5 ka buok
Versus strangers.
Baka kaila.
Oh, that
Dili,
would,
dili
the
pagod-
weight of that. It's not also with number of people. It
Yeah.
has to do with like
You're-
who they are to you,
Yeah.
the value of your relationship.
Correct. Yeah.
But the problem with again, if you're too black and white with beliefs, kusog kay ka ng utilitarianism nga belief, that can justify like genocide. More day kag si Thanos. If you were too strong on like that kind of belief, then mo justify gid ka nga si Thanos. Sakto to yung gibuhat.
What do you mean nga imong papa imong pabuhion unya ang lima ka buok kaning strangers dili is that
Yeah, if you guys are Marvel fans, you remember ka na sa Infinity Wars, diba naman sila kalaban nga si Thanos nga in his home planet na-invade sila, namatay to yung tanan nga family yung mga kaila. Wipe out. So he said that human beings, we're destroying our own earth, which is true.
Yeah.
We're killing each other, na yung mga gira, na yung mga war. So he says, you know what? I'm gonna do everyone a favor. I'm gonna snap my fingers using the Infinity Stones, and I'm gonna choose to not choose. Only half of the Earth's population will survive. Para will survive ang Earth. So that in itself is like trying to what do you call that? Prioritize the greater good. Kay masalbar man ang universe, pero at what expense, diba? So I think that's one of the dangers of being too idealistic also. If what is right is really what benefits all, or what benefits you the most, then is it really right, diba?
You know, kaning inana sa mga pangutanaha ba, I think ang importanteng i-factor in na niya is really the self, the individual making the decision, right? Because nakinumdum ko, somebody once said nga you know, it's only corruption if you're not part of it.
It's only corruption if you're not part of it.
Yeah, somebody once said that a long time ago, a sage politician. Ang kanasang butanga sad, kung wa kay labot sa decision nga imong buhaton, wa kay labot ikaw mismo ba, dili ka
maapektuhan.
Ka maapektuhan. Ang imong decision making process lahi sad kung maapektuhan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So importante kaayo nga you have to factor in the self in every decision that you make, even though you're trying to make it as objective, as morally right as possible, right? Speaking of superheroes, right? Si Captain America, not Captain America, what's his name? Chris Pine. I don't know if you know Chris Pine, the actor.
Chris Pine.
And Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Remember that movie?
Yeah, Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine.
He stole the airplane carrying bombs, right? And flew it as far
way
away
up to the sky.
And detonated it, right?
Oh, para mamatay tong kalaban nila.
Yeah. No, to prevent people from dying, because that was supposed to be detonated.
The explosive. Yeah. It was supposed to buto at that place. Yung gida sa sky.
Oh, namatay siya. Oh. Right. So kana siya.
Okay.
That's why there's a movie about it, and that's why they're called heroes, because that's very rare. Most people don't decide like that.
Don't make a decision.
Bahala nag masira ni, bahala nag mga matay na sa tanan basta akong pamilya safe.
So then he would have just fled with Wonder Woman if he was considering himself in the equation.
Yeah, because we always think of ourselves at the end of the day, right? Again, I don't want to make that sweeping statement, but
no, that's also another.
There is some truth to that way of thinking, right?
Do you think that's wrong, or is that fine?
I think that's wrong, but we also can't help it.
I think it's personally, I think it's neither wrong or right that we consider ourselves first. There's also that concept bitaw of like what they tell you on the airplane, you have to put on your oxygen mask before letting someone else wear it. And there's nothing wrong with making decisions primarily based on what benefits you or not. That's human instinct. That's survival instinct. No,
ang katong gibuhat ni Chris Pine's character in Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman to? Wonder Woman, right?
Wonder Woman.
Kato siya, like, he believes nga his life is less important compared to thousands or millions of lives, right? So, kanang ina ng butanga, like, do you think he could save that many lives for sure if he was alive? Or he weighed things, weigh ang mga butang niya. So in my lifetime, I will never be able to save 1 million lives. You know, I'd rather do this now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ang pasabot niya na, if if you're going to use the airplane analogy, then he will stay alive so he can help even more people. I think it depends also on the situation, diba?
Yeah, it could also mean that like maybe after everything, after that incident, then he'll devote his life. Like, it really depends on what he thought was again
Right
and the best decision
at that time.
At that time.
Pero sigurado manggod nga dili mga matay ang mga tao kung iyatong aton 100%, di ba? 100% man. Nga dili to mga matay ang mata because of that bomb. They'll probably die something else, but not because of that. So ikaw, if you're delusional enough to think that you can save 1 million lives, then it's up to you. But he made a call. He knew that it was going to end up him dying in this decision, right?
Yeah, and speaking of what you mentioned,
very few people make that decision.
I think you're right. Like in the same way that politicians must have this delusion to be able to carry the weight of the impossible task that's dawned upon them.
Yeah.
I think people who are like that, baka ng heroic in nature, like martyrs. I would like to call them martyrs. They also have a different kind of delusion pod. Nga, not only can they save people, pero like grabe sad kayo ilang belief no that what they're doing is right for them to be able to stick to it. Nga dili bit ma-prioritize nila ang greater good, quote unquote greater good, rather than their own lives.
Or there is reward waiting for them. There's a heaven waiting for them.
Yeah, like
or 722 virgins waiting for them, or like, whatever, right?
No, like even like heroes, for example, like the heroes that have fought for our kanang nation, kanang. Sometimes I think about it, but like maybe if I was in their place, I'd probably just run away and hide. Like Jose Rizal, for example, like the way that I would say in the best way possible, Jose Rizal was delusional to actually like stand by his word and like, oh, I'm gonna fight for until the end. Nga, until gipatay siya, like he the cause is so great that it's heavier than their fears. Because like reality is if that's most of us, we're not gonna stick till the end. We're gonna save ourselves. We're gonna run away. We're gonna kadato ato niya. He could have just traveled. He could have, he wasn't quote unquote Indio. He was educated. He could have just gone abroad and then in another way helped in a different way also. Like what if nagpadato siya dito abroad, ni pagbalik niya tabang siya, to uplift Filipinos. But lahi pod ang route that he chose, right? Same way sa plane analogy, like he could have just let the plane the bombs detonate and then help in a different way. So yeah, would you agree that these heroes, these martyrs, you have to have like
a kind
you have to be delusional.
Yeah.
You have to be delusional.
It's like another way of looking at the world. Let's just put it that way. The different way of looking at life and who they are. Like
they're a different breed.
Yeah, and but you cannot also fault them because they look like they're making the right decision. For example,
well, for me, the most important thing is they made it.
If they totally, completely believe that the Bible is written by God, for example, and it says this. So, ikamatay nila ani, whatever they're protecting, whatever values they're believing in, ikamatay nila, malangit sila. That's what they believe in. So, they're not wrong in making that decision because that's the way they believe, right?
Yeah.
So that's not what I'm trying to say. Dili ka maging nga buang na sila in a way because mo may ilang pagtuo. So mo kanti mo.
Yeah.
Right? So sakto ilang buhat. It's logical what they're doing. Because mo man gisulti nila malangit man ko, so mo niya akong buhaton. Logical. Dili siya there's no flaw in their thinking. Right?
If you're gonna look at an individual level, meaning like because it's right to them, then there's no flaw.
Yeah, there's no flaw.
Pero then,
and you as an outsider will also understand why he made that decision because mo iyang way of thinking mo na importante kayo nga mga first principles mo ginatakihon kay kung mo gonna for me this is one of my biggest beliefs that over certainty is the enemy. Mo gina
over certainty is the enemy.
Mo gina akong one of my strongest beliefs.
Why is that the case? Like,
because if you're over certain about anything, you're going to do that thing no matter what. Wala ifs and buts, wala gray areas.
So being black and white is the enemy. I agree.
Mo na gina siya. So,
radicalism.
Mo na gina siya. So importante gyud kayo nga akong like I posted earlier nga there's got to be like a sense of humility ba. Nga like what I said before nga kita tanan bright man tatanan.
Okay.
Lahi lang ta.
Pagka-bright.
Pagka-bright.
Okay.
Na ubang tao nga bright kayo mabuhi sa kalisod. Na kay bright kayo ta mathematics pero naman gyud mga butang nga mas maayo ta.
Our strengths and weaknesses,
Naman gyud tay strength. So that's how we should look at people and that's how we should look at things. That's how we have to look at also books and beliefs and political ideologies and persuasions and ways of being, ways of living. Kaning sakto sa na sila siguro pero you know maybe they're right in that area of whatever decision that they made, but they're probably you know we could do better here and all this stuff. So it's really like a constant push and pull, and the push and pull will never end. I think we all have to realize that dili kanang sige lang tag bira-bira. Yeah. Kato bitong si what's his name again? Pushing the rock on the
Sisyphus?
Sisyphus, right?
Sisyphus,
that's life. We keep on pushing the rock and then
tagak na po sa rock.
oh, dagan na balik na
Balik na
bata.
pod.
So you have I think one of the misconceptions kuno of that philosophical thought experiment or belief or school of thought is Sisyphus actually finds pleasure in the pushing of it.
It's about the climb.
Oh, it's about the pushing of the it's about the pushing of the rock. You know, that's life.
It's like Miley Cyrus said in the climb years though. Ain't about how fast I get there, ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb.
Yeah. And yeah.
It's a climb.
Yeah, it's really
Diba?
it's
the
really
journey in itself,
yeah.
the pushing, all
the bonus is you cross the finish line. Whatever delusions you have about what a finish line is. But because I always even when I'm hosting, I go philosophical, right? It's the running is the point of running is not about crossing the finish line.
which is the misconception all the time.
Yeah, it's about the process, the running. You should enjoy that part too, you know, because the bonus is you cross the finish line.
Yeah. Speaking of running, I just remembered, a shout out to all the Talisaynons.
Oh, mga Talisaynon.
Yeah, we finally have a track and field na.
Wow, asa napita?
In Poblacion, nag-open, over the
Oh.
weekend, nag-open si Mayor Samsam. And
Oh.
then everyone is saying, bito nga, himo nagpuro ng mga runners ning Talisaynon.
Unsa man ni ka kadakang ilahang
Let me check how the details.
Ilahang unsa man ni kaning racetrack rubberized ni siya?
Rubberized nga
Wow.
running track.
Nagingon ko no sila ba nga kana kuno
Cool kay no?
mga taga Talisay kuno kay kanang sinaw kuno kay mga simod kuno tinud na Justin?
Sinaw og mga...
Simod ba kanang lips ba?
Because of the lechon?
O sige lang kag litson kuno. Tinud na tinili.
Oh.
Ha?
Oh, dali.
Ikaw pwede
ang naong po.
tanawang abil nimo
That's why, guys.
namahaw siguro kag litson siguro
Yeah,
unsa.
actually, lechon. Mga naong po na mo. Talisay City Track, Oval and Soccer
okay.
Field.
Okay.
So it just opened pag weekend.
Okay.
Onya, let's see ha.
Okay.
It's a track oval at the Talisay City Central School.
All right.
So ang schedule ani guys, morning it's open from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. and that's only for the soft opening. So yeah. I'm gonna check it out niya. Magid ko hilig mag-running pero lakaw-lakaw lang gud ko no hay Jiggy. Oh, see? Which is funny because I do have a treadmill at home pero I'm just that lazy, I guess.
Unsay lazy nga? O dagan-dagan ka?
Oh, namami treadmill sa balay pero
No, lagi nang mo ginang kanang exercise lisod
like it's very convenient for me, come to think of it. Naanagod ko yung treadmill
Yeah.
pero at the same time like
mo na akong buhaton gyud para kay I'm with you. I feel your pain, Justin. Like running.
No, you walk Cooper every day.
Running is
Technically you're still like way healthier.
yeah, but
than,
still I have a ulterior motive. I'm my story is I'm walking Cooper, right? And I talk to him, so I'm doing something. But kanang
Cooper.
running yun lisod yun kay nakapoy yun kay na kay I mean like
Kapoy eh.
boring ba?
That's why
boring,
mag music.
boring sa na siya.
You know, my friends are always like, you'll get a runner's high after.
Boring sa na siya. Yeah, actually, that's true.
O pa ko ka-try na, Jiggy.
Boring sa na siya in the sense nga, especially kung dili ka mag-usab-usab imong lugar. Kanang racetrack, kanang oval, for example, boring na siya. Kay pariha naman imong.
O ka ng treadmill, samot.
Samot boring. So ang solution ginakuha na is number one, if you're out there in let's say in the racetrack of Talisay or in Abiliana sa Cebu City Sports Center, nakay-kuyog. Para nakay-kastorya.
Okay, perfect. That's one.
You can have conversations, right?
Yeah.
And you can have meetings there if you like. Mag-meeting ta, magnagan ta.
Yeah,
Ana,
that's a great idea.
But number two, mami na jug libro. audiobook or mga
Okay.
podcast
Or music.
so that I can distract myself from the what
That's
the
genius.
What the hell is this, man? Like,
Yeah, I actually believe kay ko sa mga tao nga mudagan nga without anything, without any distraction. Like
Yeah.
damn, just you and your thoughts, like you and listening to the sound of your breath. Lisura, eh.
lisod kay na. And that's what we call
Raw.
discipline, right? Discipline. And,
Raw suffering.
and they're they're probably they're probably thinking about the goal, the achievement,
Yes,
the,
yes,
the,
yes.
the target that they
Pila
have,
ka
right?
miles akong
So
ginandagan.
naagya pa na sila yung mga
That reminds me, Jiggy, ba, before I
goal
remember.
goal oriented sila ba? Himuan nila og goal ang ilang
Pagdagan.
ilang suffering.
Yeah, targeted to something.
Oo.
That kind of reminds me of, speaking of goals, that reminds me of before sa Ateneo nga track and field. Me and my other co-teachers, we decided after class, sige, mag-jogging ta kunuhay. So we're jogging, walking around, and then, among goal, what's our goal, Jiggy? It's just para mag-snacks me after. Walay gamit. Pag humana, mga 3 rounds of jogging, let's get banana queue.
Okay.
Let's get snacks, banana queue. So,
Okay.
bali ang goal, it's not towards the running, it's actually towards the snack that comes after, marag reward ba.
Unsa.
Yeah, but anyways, guys, we talked about everything and anything na diri. First about fasting, ato mga news bites. And we've come to talk about morality and like gray areas and like radicalism and feminism.
Masa agyo sa.
Well, yeah, which for me is one of the best things about
Mo na
this.
siya nga mo na siya nga kung mag-istorya ka imo yung sabto ng tao asa siya unsay persuasion niya asa siya gikan
Yeah.
para makasabot sa kaniya nganong inana na siya.
Oh yeah.
O niya kung maglalis mo, for example, magdebate mo, magganahan mo you wanna be able to move a conversation forward, sabto na nimo sila
Yeah.
ng butang para
Exactly.
kibaw kagikan sa diha. Kay kung kana nga usa ka butang dili na immovable force na sa iyang utok, then wa mo ipadungan. Dili
Yeah, because unsaon nimo pag push mo point if someone's already convinced of something, like they're never gonna, there's no way for leeway for conversation ba.
Wala dili dili.
It's argument, dili conversation.
Oh.
So that's why, guys, we need to hear your opinions. Mao na siya, we're very thankful for those who've joined us today in our comments.
Para dili mi ma-delusional sa diri.
Kana sad. Okay, kami naman.
Kami rang.
So continue doing that, guys, for tomorrow. We'll be here again. We'll see you guys for the rest of the week.
And
Apil said mo sa among chat.
ayaw kahadlok kung
Kana.
musumpaki ang imuhang ang kasturya sa imuhang mga pagtuo kay
Bitaw.
nindot man na nga at least naghunahuna sa nga you're also thinking for yourself, di ba?
Yeah.
Wala lang ka ni adapt og mga panghunahuna sa iyong gihatag sa
Wala lang ka
imuhang
ni ano lang ba ni
moral ka
mindlessly agree.
ni murag blindly just
Blindly
kaning
follow.
motando lang ka sa mga butang because mo ni gisulti niya. Unsa may buhaton nako, di ba?
I think that's one of the things you have to learn, not to be afraid.
O ayog kalain kung malain ang imuhang kasturya.
Ayaw kalain
Oo.
kung malain
Kay
yung
ang
kastorya.
pasabot niya na ang imuhang gisulti niya substantial ayang
Exactly.
ang imuhang gisulti niya kaning naa say unod ba. Kay for example kanang insulto, di ba? Kaning kung insulto gali niya walay unod, di man ka ma-insulto siguro. For example, kaning ingnon ko nga bati makagnaong jig. Di ko ma-insulto ano eh. Di ko ma-insulto. Wa mo ginay unod.
Because for you,
Wapo man ko.
you know that, man. That's the black and white truth, man. Nga, you know, inside of you.
Batig na
In your heart.
munsa. So okay ra gyud na siya pero kaning of course the idea kung makikistorya kag tao sulti lang pud siya nga gastorya ta. Storyanan naman nato. Wala man
So
ta.
keep an open mind and
Yeah.
also just, keep the conversation open.
Kaya at the end of the day ba para nako pareha ra mong kita mga pangandoy, mga paminaw, ganahan ta gugma, ganahan ta higugmaon, ganahan ta makakaon, ganahan ta og shelter, ganahan ta og kaning suporta. Pareha at the end of the day, Justin, pareha ra
We
gyud
all want the same things.
pareha ra gyud atong punteriya, pareha ra gyud atong mga
Yeah, and
objectives.
at the end of the day, we all turn to worm food,
Worm food, right?
worm lunch.
So worm lunch. So
So-
maora gyud na. So
Same padunggan.
maglalis mo, mag-argument mo, magdebate mo, mag-istorya mo and also find pleasure in that. That's what we're doing here. We're actually finding pleasure in
Oh,
this
yeah.
conversation also. Because
chika-chikas.
at the end of the day, it's all about just being present, being just here and now. And that's all we can contribute
For now.
to this day for you guys. Daghang salamat sa inyong pagpaminaw sa ato ang top of the morning. I'm your host. My name is Jiggy Juice.
And my name is Justine Arvios.
Daghang salamat sa atong mga kaigsuunan nga ni-join nato sa atong Tops Media Center
Yes.
YouTube channel at Tops Media Center. Please subscribe, share this conversation, have this conversation. Sulti pod mi kung naamoy manginani nga mga konversasyon unsaon nato pag move forward sa ato ang mga gibati sa hopefully this will make things just a little bit better. Because, like they say, Justin, if you're talking, you're not fighting. You're not punching somebody. You're not killing somebody. You're just talking. And I think
Don't be afraid to have a conversation.
I think that's actually a good start if you want a kind of peace, right? Peace.
You have
right?
to talk about the difficult things to talk about. Kaya you
Yeah.
have to reopen them.
Yeah.
That's true.
The-
You have to kulkog.
Yeah, ingon sila ko nga,
Kulkog your brains.
the success of a person depends on the number of uncomfortable conversations he's had in his life. So make that uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, we're in the business of making people uncomfortable.
Should be
It
uncomfortable.
sounds so wrong.
Daghang salamat. This is
Thank you,
105.1
guys.
TMC. I'm your host. My name is Jiggy Juice.
And Justine Arvios.
Let's do it again tomorrow here on 105.1 TMC.
The best of us.